So we are here today to address one of the biggest challenges that everyone here in the room is facing, the growing talent shortage, and how we can, in collaboration, find altogether solutions to secure the future of mining. Let me start by presenting our distinguished speakers. So, Rabi Gay, I met her 2 weeks ago, and I can tell you she's a dynamo. She's energetic, passionate. She's the founder and CEO of Teach for Senegal, that's revolutionizing the education in Senegal. She secured the spot on the Forbes 30 Under 30, so please applaud her while she's coming on stage. Now, Omar Togaini. He's a legend in the mining world. I think everybody knows him. He's the Yoda of the mining world. Wise, charming, 35 years of mining experience, with last position as a VP at IM Gold. Please applaud him while he comes on stage. Then Mr. Greg Edmonds. He's our straight-talking client who keeps us always on our toes. Over 30 years of experience managing mining assets and a fresh MBA in data analytics. He's a maintenance maestro, so please welcome him on stage. So let me start by setting the scene of this panel. Have you all heard about the Great Tsunami? So it's a wave of retirement that is hitting globally the mining industry in the world. So the mining workforce is globally nearing retirement. So we have 50% of the global mining employees that are leaving, and the mining companies scrambling to find replacement. And mining is becoming less attractive. There are recent surveys that shows that the new generation, I think we call them Gen Z now, 15 to 30 years old, they don't want to go in mining. So the survey says that 70% wouldn't even consider a mining career. That's the highest negative sentiment across all industries. Why is that? We'll know a little bit more about the hardship. Greg, you will tell us more about it, isn't it? And have you ever wondered why there are so few women in mining, and why is it a systemic issue? So we will speak about it, and it starts with early education, and I think Rabi will be telling us a lot about it. And in the same time, the mining industry in West Africa is growing, let's say not growing, skyrocketing. Since the last decade, there were 20 greenfield mines that have been built in West Africa, and they were completed in an average of 1.7 years, which is very short. So West Africa is becoming a hotspot for rapid mining execution. If we take, for example, only gold, West Africa is the fastest growing gold producer globally, with 80% increase in production over the last decade. So a lot of growth, but in the same time, a shortage of skills. A scarcity of skilled workers compared to a huge demand. So let's talk about this. So Greg, can you outline the type of professional and technical skills that are the most needed in the mining industry today, and where there are the most gaps?
In short, everywhere. And it's not just about maintenance, mining maintenance, it's across the board. We talk about ESG. You know, the shortage is going to get worse. The projection of growth in mining in West Africa is going to go up. If I could give some examples, at our mine in Fekola, you know, we had 150 vacancies and we were struggling to fill them. So we thought we need to do something different. So what we did is we did like a recruitment fair in Bamako, and we advertised extensively. And what was surprising was we had thousands of applicants. However, when we looked at these people, most of them there was literacy issues and there wasn't the skills. So to frame it, it's a big problem that I think as an industry, and I did some research that sub-Saharan Africa is going to account for 90% of the world's population growth. And you talk about aging out. Japan has a problem. Africa doesn't have a people problem, it has a skills problem. And I think, you know, while I have this platform, if we look at the investment that mining companies and OEMs have, it's actually bad business. Look at the percentage of your spend, your OPEX spend or your CAPEX spend, or percentage of your revenue. How much do we spend on training? So we've got to stop complaining about lack of skills and have genuine investment within these countries, and it can only work by working with governments to build that skill base. So it's everything.
Thank you so much, Craig. Umar, can you tell us a little bit more about some successful strategies in sourcing talents?
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to commend Neemba. Sorry. Can you hear me well? Great. We want to commend Neemba because this is the first time we see a service provider to the mining industry calling a forum to discuss about sustainability. That means Neemba understands that's not only the customer's problem when we talk about climate, we talk about environment, we talk about people. It is a common problem. And we need to find a common solution. And I have to commend the vision, the innovation that you guys bringing into our industry. So when I talk, what I'm going to talk about when I mention mining companies, I'm also including key service providers like you, Caterpillar, and others. We talk about scarcity. It is common in Africa, certainly worse than any other part of the world because of really inherent issues in terms of training, in terms of how long we have mining history. Because in some countries, mining is young. It's only the last 10, 15 years that you see number of mining companies being developed. Country like Senegal, a little bit longer, but it was really focused on certain part of the country where you have a phosphate and limestone industry. Okay, sorry. Excuse me. So what I'm saying is, you look at most of the countries in West Africa, we don't have a long history of mining. It's new, and we have to be able to develop the right skill sets. And for me, Adrian talked about during the previous panel about starting from the design of a project. We need to do a mapping of the skills available in country, in the communities, in country, in the region, and we have to make a strategy how to acquire, how to bring those skill sets into a project and then into a company. For instance, in Senegal, I've started with a new project that we were managing as 𝐼𝐴M Boto, that is in far eastern part of the country. Area very remote, as most mine that you know. Very remote, but the first thing we were doing, was to map the skill set, even level of education. Because, as you know, in mining, you have different level of skill sets. Some of the low skilled jobs you can find in the communities. Others, you have to source somewhere. But you need to have in your plan to develop more people from your communities in order to progressively take higher skills, senior positions. So that was the plan, the strategy we were doing at Boto when 𝐼𝐴M was still owning the project. Our plan was we'll make sure we have enough representation from the communities in country, in West Africa first, and then what we could not source will go abroad. Overseas, bring what we call usually expatriates. We were running this program. Unfortunately, we had to farm out the project. We have to let it go. But I think that is the kind of approach mining companies need to have. It has to be planned, and from the top, it has to be a strategy understood by everyone. When I talk, the second example I can talk briefly about 𝐓𝐚𝐿. The GM was right at the stage here. 𝐓𝐚𝐿 was also built in an area in Burkina, was probably one of the first few industrial mines. Initially, there were very few people, the first time to get into even trucks, big trucks or equipment. So we had to put in place development programs in order to build a skill set. At a certain stage, back in 2015, we had about 120 expatriates, for instance, or 160, I don't remember exactly. We wanted to develop our nationals. We did a mapping. In country, we couldn't find the right skill set. We organized job fairs in Canada to see what nationals were abroad in Canada, in US, and other places, working in the mining industry, having the right experience so we can bring them back. We were quite successful. I think we brought we brought about 15 to 20 people, and some of them are still there. It has been successful. So it's about having a strategy and ensuring you implement the strategy. Second point, I'm very long, but once you have people, you have to keep them. The retention. You have to be able to create the right environment in order to maintain your people. Otherwise, they'll go. If you create the right culture, even if you lose some of your more experienced people, the new people coming will fit in. 𝐓𝐚𝐿, I don't think 𝐓𝐚𝐿 today has an issue about skill set, because even when they lose people, those coming will fit in because the right environment is there to provide them the right training, the right coaching in order to get there. I will not finish without talking about, when I talk about creating the condition women. Right now, we still are it's a shame that we only have maybe an average 9, 10, 11% of women in our workforce. That needs to change. We can talk more about it eventually, about solutions, but that needs to change. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Greg, you told us, maybe Rabi, you can tell us how this mismatch is starting from early education and what can be done in early education to close this gap.
Thank you for having me. As someone in the education space, I'm glad to be here with you all. When we talk about development, you cannot ignore early childhood education. And because I come from Senegalese farmers, I want to give the analogy of a plant. Children are like plants. In order for them to grow, they need to be nurtured in the beginning, especially at the ages of 3 and 6. They're like sponges. They soak up a lot of skills. And so a lot of the gaps that we actually see in underskilled young people stem from early childhood. We in Senegal actually don't have an early childhood curriculum. So a lot of the seeds of knowledge and values and skills are actually developed early on, and that's what people ignore. And so it's very hard for these seeds to grow when the infrastructure is not there, when the teachers are not well trained, when we lack materials. And some people overlook that. It's always higher ed, but you can often project a child's outcome early on based off of the experiences in the classroom, specifically, as I mentioned, at 3 to 6 years old. And even when you provide vocational training, some of you will see there's still skills that are missing: critical thinking, independence, social skills. That's because those skills were not brought on early on. And so when we look at the development of young talent, you have to look at the early education. And some of you are like, what about the group we have now? Yes, support the groups that we have now, the young people that are looking for jobs that lack the skills. But don't forget, by 2050, the population is going to double. So you're going to have double the problem. So we need to look at early childhood now. What can we do now with the young people or the children in Africa, and how do we support them, and how do we nurture those skills? And the mismatch, it's the curriculum. It's outdated. It's and not only the curriculum, the teachers themselves are not well trained. So we don't have digital literacy skills. We don't have critical thinking in the classroom. So all of this kind of jumbles up, and we have what we have now, which is a bunch of young people who are not prepared for the workforce. And so this is, again, early childhood education needs to be considered when we talk about supporting or developing, the future of the workforce.
Great. We will talk back about this curriculum area when we speak about the collaboration and how we can all collaborate together. But let's talk a little bit about attractivity for young generation. I don't know, maybe Greg, you can comment on this. Why mining is becoming less and less attractive, and how do we create a fair environment also to make it more attractive for women?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and Denise touched on it. I think, as an industry, we either keep up with the times or get left behind, and how we sell ourselves. So again, it starts early childhood. The 450 million Africans coming in the job market. How do we get the skills? How do we get the people? And I think the journey to creating a sustainable industry that makes us attractive is our big challenge. Certainly, I talked about the lack of investment is not good enough, and that investment has to start early. That we've got to be the cool job, and we're not at the moment. And I think it's hand in hand with sustainability, with that early childhood going up and the programs that makes young people want to work in the mining industry, and that's our challenge collectively.
Omar, do you want to comment on this, maybe comparing with some more mature market like Canada, and you have also experience here in West Africa. How do they compare, and how can we make it more attractive for women?
No, thank you. True, I think as Greg mentioned, mining is not seen as cool, and I think there is a perception that from the general public that mining is really, it's dirt, it's moving dirt, it's polluting. We are predators to the community, so a lot of young people, they don't like mining because they have that perception. The problem is different in Africa, in more mature countries. In Canada, where the job market is more dynamic, it's about coolness. People, if they have a choice, they're not going to go to mining. And a lot of people don't want to go into mining. So we have to be able, as mining companies, we have to be able to present what we're doing, to defend even in terms of ESG, in terms of sustainability, so people understand. When you take Africa, because they not enough jobs, there is huge demand. Unfortunately, not necessarily the right skills. The best and brightest will not go into mining. They will go into bank, they will go into IT, they will go into other parts. So, yes, people want to go to mining because they don't have job, but we're not getting the best and brightest. So we need to change that perception about what we do. When Denise talk about innovations, a lot of innovation coming out of mining. People don't even realize today everything that's being created out of mining, but it's up to us to do that. With mining industry in general. I'm not talking about only individual companies, but as a mining sector, including service providers and all the different stakeholders being involved, need to have more educational towards the larger public.
Rabi, what are the challenges that women are facing in early education, especially in scientific career? Why are we seeing so few women in scientific paths? And it will be important for us if we need a larger database of women. It should start somewhere.
Yeah, I think it really touches on what Omar was saying. It's the perception, really. And I can't speak on mining globally. I can maybe speak on it through rural and working with communities that are outside of Dakar. It's really the perception, and the perception goes back to the lack of knowledge. In many of our classrooms in our schools, students are only exposed to careers that within proximity of them. So many of them are only exposed to teachers, farmers, or banks and things that they engage with every day. They are not exposed to the mining industry, and so that lack of knowledge, really, many people don't know. Out in Dakar maybe, but outside of Dakar, there's very few people who understand what mines do, and there's different sectors and different jobs that come with that. So I think the exposure has a lot to do with that. Being more integrated and involved in the schools, I think, would help. Having more key players be in front when it comes to the education sector would help. Also, I think there's cultural norms. We are a Muslim country where women are expected to be at home and to take care of the children. So it's really difficult for women to be in this field that does require them to step away often. So how do we create a space that enables them to both balance motherhood or whatever it is that is happening at home and to be in the workforce? So it's creating that space. What is the mining industry doing to incentivize women to come into the sector?
How, Omar? How do we create this fair environment?
Interesting, thank you. Creating the right environment for women, more females, to go into mining is critical. Let's put it this way. You take most of our mines here, young females may be able to progress up to a certain degree because, as long as they don't have children or they're not married, they may be able to survive. But as soon as they start having children, we don't have the right conditions for them to be able to continue to work and perform in these remote areas. So when I was talking about creating the right environment, it's really to take that into consideration. The world talk about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But we're not creating the inclusion part. We're not creating the equity that allow women to perform. We all know that today we are, when I talk about 10, 11%, we do need to realize there is a problem and how we deal with that. In developed mining companies, but also I think governments need to get involved. Unfortunately, the representative of government is not here. We can talk more about it, but yes, we need to really realize that we have a problem and take measures to create the right environment. Some companies are doing, for instance, giving longer-term maternity leave to women when they give birth, up to a year, for instance, at Essakane. But also, do we have nursery close to the mines so women, even coming from the communities, at break they can go and take care of their children and come back to work? I don't think we're creating the right environment for women today, females, in order to perform.
Thank you so much, Omar, for that. For the last topic, I want to speak about collaboration. I want us to speak about collaboration. Today at Neemba, we have invested a lot in training. We have around 800 technicians with a training path. We are investing also in Neemba Academy, which is a 3 million euro capex and annual 3 million opex for training. We train technicians, operators. Also, we train for our mining clients, supervisors, we train technicians, etc. But there is still a lot of shortages. And what we feel is that we are obliged to go and take some expatriate technicians for some of our mining operation. And we get a lot of poaching because the salaries also in the mining industry are higher than in the equipment industry. So there's still a lot of shortages. And I know everyone here is doing a lot in terms of training. But what about collaboration? How can we collaborate to create enough skills of technicians, operators, managers in the mining industry So we don't have just this little pie where we all trying to get our employees from. So who wants to comment it? Maybe Greg, you can start, and Omar, you can complete.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, and when we had our call last week and we discussed, this is a platform, how do we want to make impact, and I think Uma said, we don't want to just get up here and same old statements. We must collaborate, we must, what everybody says. And for me, if I could relate, my experience I spent 7 years in Indonesia. And certainly their structure was, I would say, more decentralised, where all the big companies, all the big mining companies, all the OEMs, all the big contractors, there was significant investment in skill development. It was more individually, they would partner with technical schools and things like that. And, when I left Indonesia in around 2013, 2014, when the coal price collapsed. And when the coal price collapsed, they kicked all the expats out, were too expensive. But the good thing about it, when it started kicking up, is that they didn't need expats. The percentage of expats that went back was very small. That commitment to training and development resulted in self-sufficiency, let's say. So that decentralised model worked for Indonesia. I don't think you could copy and paste it here because the economy of scale is much smaller. So really it does need companies to come together and pool those resources and that investment to say, let's get the schools, the universities, and it's got to be genuine commitment. And I take it back to, it's bad business if we don't do it. We have this growth curve, the skills are not coming.
Thank you, Greg. Omar, can you comment on this?
No, thank you. When Greg told us about the Indonesian model, I think that fit perfectly, but with our own thinking, what we were, we've been looking at options the last several years, decade, about how to create the environment so we train people that are ready to join the mining sector or are in the mining sector and stay there. Talk about collaboration. It has to be first about collaboration. First of all, realizing that we have a gap. And as a mining industry, we need to recognize that and then take the lead in engaging with the other stakeholders. The other stakeholders are government. They're also the institutions. Some are public, some are private, at every level. You can take early stage, high school, universities. But we need to get involved. We need to talk to them so everyone realizes that these are the challenges and propose solutions. We need to be able to influence the curriculums. If you take today, most of our schools in West Africa, very few are producing graduates that can go straight and work mining sector or any other sectors. That is the first problem compared to what you see in Australia, in Brazil, in Australia, where mature mining and industrial countries. So we need to be able to influence the curriculum that are taught. We also need to be able to provide to the graduate or the students opportunities through internships. If I do a survey here, I'm pretty sure very few companies have formal agreements in place with institutions where they take every year interns through a well-defined internship programs. I'm not bragging, but we have done that since 2014. We had formal agreement with at least 10 different institutions in Burkina and other parts in order to provide the right internship programs for students coming. This is also part of our duties. And last big point, we all know most of our countries are cash-strapped. They do not have enough means to finance all education. The needs are huge. But mining industry, we need to contribute at least to those professional schools, to universities, in order to allow them to get the right infrastructure, the right teachers, and everything. And there are examples around the world. I was reading Newmont financing the Colorado School of Mine. You look at Anglo-American in South Africa, how many institutions they're supporting in order to develop, to have laboratories, to have equipment, to have what they need. In Botswana, it's being done. But in West Africa, we need to do that. I don't think we're doing that enough. And I'm calling, thank you. Madam Rokaya, you're here representing the Chamber of Mine. I think the Chamber of Mine is the right group to take that, part of our strategic plans, and get us involved and get all the mining companies involved and approach the other stakeholders. In Mali and other places, we need to do the same thing. And then, probably we are a regional organization, ECOWAS, in order where you have a Chamber of Mine of ECOWAS. But it has to be part of our strategic priorities. Right now, it's not, because we don't hear much about it. So what I'm saying, I think, Madam Rokaya, Tijan, and others, let's take that, make sure we include. But the cooperation with the other stakeholders, we need to have the dialogue. First, government and institution. Happy Rabi is here. From early stage, high schools, universities, we need to be able to get involved. If we don't do that, we're not going to solve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. So what we hear here, it's time to action. We were talking, and I think you're tired of panels and speaking about it. So now we need action. So that's why I encourage you to go to the survey and answer the survey. We will be creating a working group with our partner, so public, private companies, institutions, so we can take this forward, have maybe 3 or 4 actionable items that we want to follow up, and try to do something to tackle this issue and not just talk about it. So thank you all for your this insightful conversation, and it's time for action. Thank you.